This is one of the largest cities in the world by area and one of the most populous cities in Europe. Over 13 million people live here, more than 20 million if you count the surrounding metropolitan area. Every day around 3 million cars travel through its streets. This city is Moscow. But everything you see on the surface is just a small part of what's hidden. Hundreds of kilometers of secret tunnels, bunkers built to withstand nuclear strikes, flooded mines and mysterious corridors whose purpose still remains unknown, all stretch beneath the city. Here, the past, present and future intertwine. And today we'll show you the most unexpected underground secrets of the Russian capital. Secrets people prefer not to talk about. What lies beneath Moscow? Our journey begins at street level. At the very top there's asphalt or paving stones, typically extending about 2 inches deep. Cobblestones can be thicker, up to 3 inches. Below that, at a depth of up to 6.3 inches, lies the leveling layer. This layer ensures a smooth surface before the asphalt is laid. It is often made of coarse asphalt, concrete or even solid concrete on heavily trafficked roads. Deeper still, at around 18 inches, there's the base layer made of crushed stone or gravel. It supports the entire road, preventing it from falling apart. Beneath that is the bedding layer. This is a sandy cushion reaching down 26 inches. This layer prevents water accumulation and helps distribute the load evenly across the road. In Moscow, communication and power supply cables buried directly in the ground are typically laid at depths of 2 to 4 feet. The water pipes lie a little further down at a depth of 5 to 6.5 feet. In Moscow, they need to be buried deeper to prevent them from bursting in winter due to freezing temperatures. And right nearby, remnants of ancient settlements predating even the earliest roads. At a depth of up to 10 feet in Kolomenskoye Park, there are the remains of Dyakovo Hill Fort, one of the oldest settlements in the region. Long before Moscow even existed, life was already thriving here. They built fortifications, farmed, fought and made sacrifices to their gods. So what have archaeologists found? First and foremost, spear and arrow tips, battle axes. Then sickles, knives, scrapers and countless pieces of jewellery. The remains of cows, sheep, horses, and among them, surprisingly, bear bones. Does that mean that ancient Russians actually had pet bears? Not quite. It simply proves that they were skilled hunters. Other finds include amulets, stone idols, bone pendants with mysterious carvings, ritual knives, pottery and other sacred objects. The Dyakovo Hill Fort was destroyed and burned many times, but each time it was rebuilt. It endured for 1,000 years, but people gradually moved on in search of better lands. Eventually, Moscow emerged nearby. Near Philly Park, about 10 feet below ground, lie the remains of the Kuntsevo Hill Fort, an ancient settlement from the 11th to 13th centuries. It was the home of the old Slavic Vatici tribe. Beneath the ground there are remains of homes, farm buildings and palisade fortifications. Judging by the finds, the inhabitants engaged primarily in farming, hunting, fishing and livestock breeding. Discoveries also include bone, clay and metal objects, various cast tools and jewellery. But this place has a darker side. According to legend, there was once a church here, and one day it simply sank into the ground, along with the people inside. Shepherds claimed that at night one could hear the sound of bells from underground. It sounds like a mere folktale, but there are indeed mysterious voids lying beneath the site. Archaeologists have discovered traces of buildings and layers of earth that seem to have sunk several meters down. But that church was nowhere to be found. It seems like this place has accumulated many eerie legends. But why? Could it be due to the strange artifacts found nearby? In the streams near the hill fort, one can still find peculiar objects called devil's fingers. They certainly look eerie, especially to someone living in the 13th century. Many fears and superstitions likely arose because of them. But in reality, they are nothing more than fossilized belemnites, extinct cephalopod mollusks. Yet there are far greater mysteries lying under Moscow. Most of them, however, were man-made. At a depth of around 16.5 feet, we find ourselves in the heart of the city's infrastructure, among the engineering corridors. Here, underground tunnels known as utility vaults house high-voltage power lines. At the lowest level of this system, there are massive tunnels with power cables. They are true underground highways for electricity, connecting substations, metro stations, and major facilities. These tunnels are large enough to walk through upright, though navigating them can be tricky due to the water underfoot. In the past, some of these tunnels even led directly to the metro shafts. What's astonishing is that some of these giant vaults look as though they were built just recently. Yet inside, there are no people, no operational equipment, just abandoned tunnels with perfectly preserved walls. Who built them and why? Blood-red graffiti on the walls only reinforces the eerie horror movie-like atmosphere. And then there are rooms that resemble living spaces. Clearly something large and important was being constructed here, until suddenly, mostly everything was abandoned. How many more such structures lie beneath Moscow? At a depth of around 23 feet, there's a nuclear fallout shelter from the 1970s. And it's hidden underground right next to the Moscow city's skyscrapers. Inside, the shelter features metal bunk beds, ventilation systems, restrooms, and water supplies. But staying here for more than 2 days would be a bad idea. Water is scarce. And what about the toilets? In complete isolation, they turn into primitive cesspits. Not the most pleasant setup for a long stay. The air filtration system is meticulously designed. Under normal conditions, air passes through oil filters that trap radioactive dust. In the event of a chemical attack above the ground, charcoal filters get activated. And if the situation becomes dire, bam, hermetic doors slam shut, sealing the shelter. Air no longer circulates. Now, every breath uses up the oxygen stored in the tanks, while chemical absorbers work to remove the carbon dioxide. The system is functional, but not for long. All operations were controlled from a command center where even phone communication was encrypted. Picking up the receiver and dialing a number, not that simple. Calls were only connected manually through a designated operator. Now you can see all of this for yourself. The bunker has been transformed into an interactive museum where visitors can handle old military telephones, listen to ominous alert recordings, and even find out what training samples of chemical weapons smell like. Yes, these aren't actual combat agents, but other substances that just happen to smell similarly. Also, there are old Soviet sirens here. Monstrous devices that roar at 123 decibels, which is louder than a jet taking off. Such sirens are still on the roofs of Moscow, but today they mostly serve as museum exhibits. Other bunkers at this depth haven't been turned into museums yet. But that doesn't mean we can't take a closer look at what's down there. At a depth of 23 feet lie underground chambers of Moscow State University. But calling it just a university wouldn't do it justice. It's practically a city within a city built in 1953. Beneath its grand main building hides a 2-level underground complex. The first level serves as a bomb shelter, while the second consists of communication tunnels. But there are rumors. Some say a secret passage connects Moscow State University to the metro. It was supposedly designed for evacuating students in the case of war. Narrow, aging staircases of the first underground level seem to lead there. Below them, an enormous flooded shaft stretches deep underground. Could this be the elusive escape route to the metro? But that's not all. On the first underground level, long dark corridors stretch behind massive hermetic doors, as heavy as submarine hatches. Beyond them, empty halls reminiscent of post-apocalyptic video games. But all this isn't a movie set. The cold concrete, rusting metal, and unsettling silence are all real. One of the doors conceals other corridors. They're dark and occasionally flooded. And finally, there's a place hidden behind thick metal barriers. Peering through a small opening in the door, one can see what lies inside. Another ominous space, with a camera inside. Some say this isn't the lowest level. Rumors have it that there may be some sort of cryo chambers. Unfortunately, no one has managed to descend any further. At a depth of 23 feet, there's also a bomb shelter on the grounds of the Russian Aircraft Corporation, MiG. The entrance is through a massive reinforced hermetic door. Each door leads to a different world: air filtration rooms, water storage tanks, and bunker bathrooms. Interestingly, even here, in a shelter designed for an apocalypse, there are bidets in the restrooms. Yes, comfort first, no matter what. There's also a water supply for 600 people. 10 tanks, each holding 2.5 tons. But the strangest thing is that tap water still runs here, even though this place has long been abandoned. At depths of up to 23 feet, other bunkers were built for one of the pivotal leaders of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin. He ruled the country in the first half of the 20th century, and his reign was marked by strict security measures. The most secretive World War II-era bunker was located directly beneath the Kremlin, the historic complex housing the Russian government. It was given a deliberately cryptic Soviet-style name, Object Number 1. Constructed in 1941, this hidden facility was built right next to the government between Kremlin buildings. For several months in 1941 and 1942, it served as a wartime command center during bombings. What happened to it afterwards remains a mystery. But this kind of facility wasn't the only one. At a depth of 23 feet lies another so-called Stalin's bunker, Object Number 18, located on the outskirts of Moscow in the Kuntsevo district. It was built in 1941 at the height of World War II. The secret facility was underground a government dacha, a small country estate. The bunker became operational in 1942. However, it's unlikely that Stalin visited it often, as the bombings of Moscow ceased that same year. Today, the site has been declassified. Of course, these are not Stalin's only bunkers. Similar structures existed across the country, and many remain unknown. Now, let's descend a bit further to explore other historic underground sites. The next stop is the catacombs directly beneath the Kremlin, descending 26 feet deep. It's hard to imagine the kind of secrets they hold. The sheer scale is staggering. Entire districts were once connected through a network of basements. Stone vaults, rusted pipes, collapsed passageways. Once these tunnels stretched across an entire block, but most of them have now been sealed off. However, one basement remains intact, and it's a true time capsule. Mold creeps along the walls. 17th century loading arches stand crumbling, Soviet-era tiles and rotting wooden supports that are on the verge of collapse. Against this eerie backdrop, a mysterious white stone alcove stands out. Traces of excavation are everywhere. What were they looking for here? Gold, hidden treasures, or another secret passage? Nearby, enormous cast iron pipes with gurgling water, remnants of old ventilation systems, and a strange metal mechanism hint at a deeper level hidden below. There are dozens of such places under Moscow. Some enthusiasts are still searching for the lost library of Ivan the Terrible, Russia's first Tsar. This is a legendary archive of rare books and documents. Legend has it that the Russian Tsar hid the library so well that no one has been able to find it for centuries. Now we descend to yet another Stalin-era bunker, hidden 33 feet underground. The site is located in Lipki, a settlement in the Moscow region. It was once Stalin's countryside retreat, a former noble estate. Today the place is abandoned. The once picturesque mansion has fallen into disrepair, and the bunker entrance is hidden in one of the service buildings nearby. These tunnels were flooded for decades. Whether they were intentionally flooded to hide something or if the water seeped in through the soil is unclear. It was only recently that the water was pumped out, yet the air still carries the stench of hydrogen sulfide, and the walls are scarred with corrosion. Below, the corridors are downright terrifying. Where do they lead? No one knows. By the door, there is a heavily rusted electrical panel, dating to either wartime or possibly even the Tsarist era. One can't help but notice that it's made from marble. But why? No, it's not really for decoration, but rather for insulation. On the ceiling, there are very strangely shaped ventilation ducts. The elevator shaft still has hermetic doors. Further down the passage, the interior shifts dramatically. This is no longer a utility space, but rather a ceremonial one. Likely Joseph Stalin once walked here himself. The corridor stretches an astonishing 427 feet, almost 1.5 football fields in length. And all of it is clad in marble. Next, there's another surprising artifact, the elevator door. The very same elevator that Stalin likely used to descend into his underground marble fortress. Through another long passage, one reaches the life support module. At the core of the bunker lies its engine room, with remnants of an old generator. It once powered the air filtration, electricity and water systems, ensuring survival in case of a major attack. Speaking of water, we've already seen how it seeps through and floods Moscow's underground structures. But did you know that under this megacity at depths of up to 49 feet, there are hundreds of underground rivers? In total, there are about 800 rivers and streams in Moscow, and at least 150 of them were diverted underground into concrete collectors as part of urban expansion. Here are some of the most remarkable underground rivers. Take, for example, the Tarakhanovka River. The name is amusing. Tarakhan means cockroach in Russian. This small river stretches just 5 miles, with part of its underground collector running directly beneath the old cemetery. The walls here are lined with broken bricks and tangled tree roots. This place clearly has a strange life of its own. Rust stalactites hang from the ceiling, while mysterious red streaks run down its walls. It's quiet, but not completely silent. The subway runs beneath the concrete walls of the collector. Then there's Neglinka, one of Moscow's largest rivers, completely buried underground with no open sections remaining. Above ground, it once originated from the Pashensky swamp near the Marina Rosha. The river's collector begins at the Savyolovskaya railway station near the Stankolit platform. You can access it through a sewer manhole. Inside, the tunnels look like something built by medieval masons rather than modern engineers. Arched ceilings, circular passageways and dark corridors. Inside, there are small egg-shaped drainage tunnels that keep the water moving and prevent stagnation. Another Moscow river with an eerie name is Kruvyanka, which translates to Bloody River. And the name is no exaggeration. There used to be a slaughterhouse here, and its waste was dumped directly into this river. Today, part of the river remains above ground, while another section flows through a concrete collector. From the outside, the entrance pipe looks unremarkable, giving no hint of the vast, cavernous spaces hidden beyond it. Inside, the collector is littered with decades worth of trash. The powerful water currents can flood it in just 10 minutes during heavy rains. As the city developed, new layers were added on top to level the terrain. This is how the river ended up at a depth of 49 feet. But we're about to go even deeper, in fact much deeper. At depths of up to 131 feet, there are so-called deep-lying utility vaults. Entry here is strictly prohibited. What you're about to see are unique shots from people who managed to sneak inside against all odds. It's said that this collector isn't from Stalin's era, but is a modern construction that meets the highest modern standards. It is capable of functioning autonomously for many years, thanks to its powerful ventilation and its own firefighting system. The entire structure is reinforced with metal shielding, making it capable of withstanding a nuclear attack. There are multiple passageways, most probably leading to metro, power substations and, possibly, classified sites. What lies beyond these tunnels remains a mystery. But up next is a place we know much more about. A place that anyone can visit today. However, in Soviet times, almost no one even knew it existed. At a depth of approximately 141 feet, there lies a classified archive bunker built in the 1950s for the USSR Ministry of Foreign Affairs. For decades, this facility remained completely secret, hidden from the public eye until very recently. It wasn't until 2018 that this place was declassified. So, what was hidden there? This bunker could be called the Soviet Union's underground Fort Knox. But instead of gold, it safeguarded top-secret diplomatic archives. Just imagine an archive stretching for dozens of miles, containing documents that could have potentially changed the course of history. It was a fully operational, secure storage facility equipped with life support systems, airtight doors and an independent power supply. Inside, there were metal shelves, miles of documents, armoured doors and spy-proof walls. Officially, the bunker stored foreign ministry records, diplomatic correspondence and strategic agreements. However, there were rumours that it also contained sensitive intelligence on world leaders. It's possible that the original secret protocols of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact might have been hidden here. It was a non-aggression agreement between the USSR and Nazi Germany, signed on August 23, 1939. However, just 2 years later, in 1941, Hitler violated the pact by waging war against the Soviet Union. But why store these critical documents in such a deep underground bunker? During the Cold War, Soviet officials were seriously preparing for a nuclear apocalypse. Diplomats needed not only to survive, but also preserve vital records about the USSR's international relations. Even if Moscow were reduced to ashes, these documents were meant to endure. Today, the bunker is open for guided tours. However, even now, it's unclear whether everything has actually been declassified. Perhaps there are still documents stored there that could change our understanding of Soviet and global history. But just a little deeper under Moscow lies a completely different layer. An underground world that has been forming since the 19th century. At depths of up to 151 feet lies Moscow's sewer network. Compared to other European cities, Moscow's sewage system is relatively young. It's just over 100 years old. How did it all begin? Until the 19th century, the waste was disposed in the simplest way possible, by dumping it into the Moscow River, the Yauza, and the very same Neglinka. And from there it flowed downstream. The result was an overpowering stench and constant outbreaks of cholera and typhoid that were considered normal at the time. The first attempt to clean things up came in the 17th century when part of the Neglinka River was buried and primitive wooden drainage systems were introduced. But the real sanitation revolution only began in the late 19th century when Moscow's population began to grow, along with its waste problems. In 1898, the first centralized sewage system was built. It was designed by engineer Gustav Eiffler, and it was a breakthrough. For the first time, waste wasn't dumped into open rivers and was redirected into underground collectors. Today, Moscow's sewer system is a massive engineering structure. The network spans over 5,280 miles, and the main collectors are up to 15 feet in diameter. In fact, they are large enough not only to walk upright, but even for a truck to drive through. Moscow's sewer system is divided into several subsystems, each with its own role. Storm drains collect rainwater and discharge it directly into rivers without any purification. Household sewage lines, on the other hand, transport wastewater to treatment facilities. During heavy rains, giant underground reservoirs activate to take in excess water and hold it until the rain subsides. And at the deepest levels, main underground channels act as vital flood control arteries, keeping the city's infrastructure running in any weather. Every year, engineers conduct routine inspections, removing tons of grease, sand and construction debris that accumulate inside. The deepest sewer system in Moscow is the Obruchevsky Deep-Level Sewer Canal. It runs at a depth of up to 151 feet and has a capacity of 528 million gallons per day. Impressive, isn't it? But wait, there's even more to come. At a depth of 164 feet, you'll find Moscow's first deep underground bunker, which was designed as early as 1933. Its walls are made of solid reinforced concrete. The bunker was integrated into the metro system. One exit led directly to the platform of the Kirovskaya metro station, Chiste Prudy, while others connected to a network of underground tunnels. The project was designed under extreme secrecy. Even in official documents, the station's name was replaced with dots. Object near metro station, ... To maintain cover, funding came from the reserve fund of Metrostroy, the main contractor that constructed the Moscow Metro. However, only 9 people knew what was actually being constructed. The shaft was dug in the yard of house number 33 on Kirovskaya Street for all the Moscow residents to see. By 1936, the concrete framework was complete. The bunker featured 2 floors, an independent power supply, gas filtration systems, and ventilation. Eyewitnesses report that the interior was surprisingly well furnished, with plush armchairs, velvet-covered walls, and a control panel with direct communication to military command. There was even a shower, and also a special sealed telephone intended for extreme emergencies. Finding a way to disguise the entrance was a challenge. At one point, they even considered building the entrance through a school. In 1937, the facility was completed. Above it, they constructed the Moscow Military District's Air Defense Headquarters, and the bunker itself went on combat duty. It remained operational for most of World War II and became the prototype for dozens of underground command centers across the country. Now let's descend to a depth of 213 feet. Here lies Bunker 42, a portal of the Cold War era. Located under the center of the capital, it was designed to save the country's top leadership in the event of a nuclear strike. With thick reinforced concrete walls, airtight doors, and full autonomy, this bunker could have survived even a direct nuclear attack. Constructed in the 1950s, it was built during the time when tensions between the USSR and the USA were rapidly escalating. The nuclear arms race was in full swing, and many believed that a nuclear war was imminent. This facility housed a backup command post for the General Staff, responsible for coordinating a retaliatory nuclear strike in case Moscow was destroyed. Inside, a fully functional underground city with all the necessary infrastructure was created. It was equipped with operation rooms with maps of potential nuclear apocalypse scenarios, direct phone lines to the Kremlin, hermetically sealed airlocks, and advanced radiation-proof ventilation. A separate railway line existed, enabling the secret evacuation of top leadership. There were also stockpiles of food, water, and fuel, enough to last several months. All of this was in total secrecy. For decades, the facility did not appear on maps. Even the construction workers had incomplete information. Each worker knew only of their specific task. Officially, the site was listed as a standard warehouse. After the collapse of the USSR, the bunker was abandoned. However, in 2006, it was converted into an interactive Cold War museum. Today, visitors can literally step into the past, explore Soviet command posts, and even press the legendary red button. But if we descend another 65 feet, we'll find ourselves back in the present, amidst the chaos of modern Moscow. Yes, at 276 feet below ground, life in the Moscow metro is in full swing. It is, without exaggeration, a true underground metropolis. A vast web of tunnels and stations that serve millions of passengers daily. The metro's history dates back to 1935, when the first tunnels were dug by hand using pickaxes and open pit methods. Initially, there was just one line with 11 stations. Today, the Moscow Metro has expanded to 14 lines, 271 stations, and 292 miles of tracks, making it one of the largest and most intricate metro systems in the world. The deepest station, Park Pobedy, lies at a depth of 276 feet, about the same height as the Statue of Liberty, but only underground. It also boasts the longest escalators in the system, stretching 413 feet. With peak hour train intervals of just 90 seconds, Moscow's metro ranks among the fastest in the world. Each day it transports around 6 million people, more than the entire population of some countries. But the Moscow Metro isn't just a transportation system, it's also a work of art. More than 40 stations have been declared cultural heritage sites, featuring grand chandeliers, mosaics, and columns that make them feel more like halls of a massive palace than a subway. With its mosaic-adorned ceilings, Mayakovskaya is a masterpiece of Art Deco. Komsomolskaya exudes Baroque grandeur, and Ploshad Revolutsky is guarded by bronze soldiers and workers. The metro wasn't built only for transportation. During World War II, people sought refuge here from bombings. During the air raids, 217 children were born in the metro. However, history could have taken a very different turn if the Soviet leadership had not changed their mind about destroying the metro. In mid-October 1941, the situation near Moscow was critical. The Soviet troops were suffering defeat, and the city braced for a last-ditch defense. The metro was a crucial strategic asset. It could be used to transport troops, store supplies, and provide shelter. But if the capital fell, it would also hand the enemy a ready-made underground infrastructure right beneath the city. This is why on October 15, 1941, Soviet Transport Minister Lazar Kaganovich ordered the immediate shutdown of the metro and requested proposals for destroying this strategic object to be submitted within 3 hours. By October 16th, the metro was no longer operating. The result? Mass panic. Thousands fled the city and chaos erupted. Fearing total collapse, Soviet leaders abandoned the idea of destroying the metro. That same day, the metro was powered back on, and by evening, the trains resumed service. This was the only day in history that the Moscow metro stopped operating. There are also rumors of hidden tunnels in the Moscow metro. At the very least, some sections are completely inaccessible to regular passengers. In the past, it was relatively easy to sneak into these technical facilities, and security was minimal. Today, however, security measures are far stricter, with entry permitted only with official clearance and metro personnel escort. But there is something even deeper, and people prefer not to talk about it. All these tunnels, chambers, secret bunkers, and even flooded underground spaces pale in comparison to what lies even deeper. Yes, deeper than the metro, and this is one of Moscow's greatest secrets. We are talking about Metro 2, located at a depth of 620 feet. And its story is worthy of a movie adaptation. In 1991, the USSR completely collapsed. A year later, Russian writer Vladimir Gonik published a novel titled The Abyss, where he described some secret tunnels beneath Moscow. Their scale was mind-blowing and the depth unbelievable. It was Gonik who originally coined the term Metro 2, claiming that while his book was embellished, it was inspired by real rumors among metro construction workers. But someone beat him to it. In 1991, the CIA published a report titled Military Forces in Transition, which explicitly mentioned a classified underground transport system in Moscow. According to the report, the tunnels ran parallel to the regular metro and were intended for the evacuation of top Soviet leadership in case of war. Estimates suggest that Metro 2's tunnels reach depths of 660 to 980 feet and are large enough to accommodate up to 10,000 people. Over the years, declassified archives have gradually revealed more details about Moscow's underground special facilities. While they don't explicitly mention Metro 2, they do reference multiple classified structures, including the Kremlin Complex No. 103, with a narrow-gauge railway, long-range air intakes of the metro system, a deep single-track tunnel leading to object number 54 beneath the Moscow River, and the mysterious Vetka system, CHZ 1090. Together, these facilities have become unofficially known as Metro 2. By the 2000s, discussions about Metro 2 were growing louder. In 2001, former KGB Colonel Oleg Gordievsky, who defected to the UK in 1985 after secretly working for British intelligence for 11 years, gave an interview where he remarked,
"You still don't know the KGB's biggest secret: enormous underground cities, entire communication networks, an entire system of such facilities. But, of course, no one will show them to you."
In 2004, Vladimir Shevchenko, who headed protocol services under Gorbachev and Yeltsin, confirmed the existence of a Kremlin line, stretching from the Kremlin to Stalin's nearby dacha in Volinskaya, though he noted it was no longer in use. Mikhail Poltorarin, former deputy prime minister under Yeltsin, claimed that a vast network of tunnels existed, featuring a wartime command post and branches leading to the Moscow region. Even Dmitry Gayev, former leader of the Moscow Metro, directly stated in 2007,
"I would be surprised if Metro 2 didn't exist."
So what's really there? There are some specific details about at least a couple of facilities. Object number 100. It's a classified underground tunnel shelter that connects the Kremlin, the old square historic center, and the former KGB headquarters on Lubyanka. It was designed for evacuating top government officials and swift movement between key government buildings in the event of an emergency. In the 1960s, the tunnel had a narrow-gauge railway with small electric rail cars. Its current condition remains unknown, but its depth ranges from 103 to 180 feet, depending on the section. Not incredibly deep, but just wait. There's also the Vetka object, a separate secret metro line. It was built specifically for the evacuation of high-ranking officials. They were supposed to be transported from government complexes and Ministry of Defense bunkers in central Moscow to more protected special facilities in the Remenki area. At one point, a photo of the station platform from this system even leaked into the public domain. The Vetka tunnels contain standard railway tracks, but without a third rail for power. Instead, the tracks are embedded in concrete slabs, allowing vehicles to drive through the tunnels as well. And the depth, by metro standards, is truly mind-blowing. At University Station and Remenki, Vetka plunges to a staggering 620 feet, as of now. For now, it is the deepest underground structure in Moscow that we know about.